Is this working? Yeah, I'll bet it is. I tested enough, but we'll get started in just a minute. Let me grab my notes here. Never this fucking organized. All right. Hello. As I stated earlier today, we are doing a driving video today. This is pre-recorded. The audio is going to be minimal through this pre-recorded driving video because my GoPro shakes a little bit too much in its transparent container. And so that sound, which you might think is my exhaust, is actually the GoPro rattling inside the case that it's in, that I have to put it in to actually make it fit on the mount. Unfortunately, but I am saving up a little bit of money and taking recommendations on a new setup. So if you do have any recommendations, just DM them to me or put them in the chat. Alright, I think I've tested my audio settings enough. Everything seems to be in working order, so... I'm not going to yap for the whole video because I do want you to enjoy the scenery a little bit, so... I do have a list of things that I'm going to talk about, though. And I think one of the ways to measure the talent of anybody who is into streaming is to see just how much they can talk about on the fly. You know, years ago when I was in my first year of college, I had an English professor. I remember his name, but just to keep from getting too many details, he taught us to basically write. And one of the things that he did, even though we were writing things, was, well, he basically would always say that writer's block is horseshit. Write something. No matter what it is, just write something. And I kind of think when you're doing this streaming like this, that's kind of like a live stream and it's impromptu a bit, or maybe it's planned and you kind of have a high level script but you don't know exactly what you're going to cover, the same principle applies. Just speak, or just talk. Just yap. Who the hell cares what it's about? Just yap. And well, that's what I'm doing now. Let me check one more thing real quick though before I continue to yap. It appears my audio is working okay, but I need to just make sure that... Okay, yeah. Everything is in working order, it seems. So, welcome to a little town, or rather, I should say, an old town square that's now surrounded by the suburban sprawl of Atlanta called Woodstock. This is Woodstock, Georgia. We're driving through the old historic downtown that kind of built itself up around a railroad station whose tracks you can see off to the left here. This is an old state route that kind of parallels those tracks that goes between, I think, Atlanta and the North Georgia mountains, but don't quote me on that. And we're stuck in traffic here, but I'm going to yap about various things that are related and not related to this scenery that you're seeing here. Sometimes I just get in the zone and I just listen to the music, so that's okay. I have a glass of Coke and a box of Cheez-Its, so. So about a month ago, I was back east in Alabama and Georgia, visiting family and friends, and that's when I recorded this video. I was in Atlanta for a couple of days, and I wanted to take some GoPro footage from my ND Miata that I drove all the way over there from Texas, and get a little bit of scenery in, kind of like see what I could do with it as far as the setup goes. And these are probably, or rather this is probably going to be the last video, because it's two videos that are stitched together with this particular camera setup. I may do one or two more small ones, but I'm definitely going to invest in something a little bit more robust, a little bit higher quality, and a little bit easier to mount than what I have right now, which is something I borrowed from my roommate, which has served me well for the past year or so that I've been using it. I think the first few videos I used with it, or I used it for, were footage from Miatas at the Gap, which was last August. And it served me well throughout that, but the rattling and the video quality, the rattling has gotten annoying. The video quality is not quite at what it was, at least in my opinion. It doesn't deal with sun glare that well, as you can see here, but it is what it is, and you're going to have to put up with it for the next, hour and a half or so, and that should give me enough time to rant about a few things. So the weather was nice for my trip back east. Like I said, visited family, friends. I also hit up a lot of the anime/weeb stores, WEEB. Being an anime fan, don't think I misspoke or something like that. So, and I also visited a lot of gun stores when I was back east, some of which I used to regularly, frequent and buy stuff from and shoot at when I lived in Georgia back right before and during COVID, before I moved to Texas. So this area here is basically like the Metro Atlanta area is kind of familiar haunts for me. And so I get excited every time I get a chance to go back. I do kind of want to take my NA one or two more trips. I did it about a year and a half ago and went to the North Georgia mountains in it, and she was a champ. But I do want to keep the miles down on my NA, and I drive it regularly, but I don't feel like taking it on long distance trips. Maybe I'll get another NA Miata, or maybe an NB Miata for that purpose. But the ND is what I go in for, long distance road trips. I went to California and back last year. I also went back east to Georgia last year, and I did this last month as well. And the footage that you're seeing is from last month. So, but every time I go, I try and visit as many people as I can realistically, because I don't want to just be able to say hi to them. I want to be able to do something, whether it's just, have lunch or coffee or whatever. So anyway, these are two videos stitched together. We're going to go throughout a good bit of the length of Georgia State Route 92, I believe. It connects a lot of the northern suburbs of Atlanta. Right now, like I mentioned before, we're in Woodstock, and I'm going to be driving all the way to Alpharetta from here for the first half of this video or so. And then we're going to cut to some more fast-paced driving along the freeways, so along the interstates. Again, I apologize for the video quality. There will be some areas, since it was overcast at times, but also very sunny at other times, so there may be some sun glare that you'll see in these videos. And again, I kind of apologize for that in advance, but it is what it is. I had a lot of fun on my trip back east, so I'll go ahead and go through the list and start yapping about certain things. So the first thing I wanted to yap about was the fact that, like I said, I used to live here, and there were gun ranges and gun stores that I would frequent. And they haven't really changed that much as far as what their selection is, what the customer service is like, and what the attitude is behind the counter, or the people who shop there. One thing I've noticed, because I was out of the I was somewhat removed from the firearms community for several years, not by anything like involuntary or anything like that. I just kind of fell out of it. In the 2010s, I was big into it, and I was buying this and that and shooting this and that, trying out different accessories, and that's how I got familiar with a lot of the gun personalities on YouTube back then, whether it be Hickok 45 or FPS Russia before, you know, he got busted or whatever you want to call it, unfortunately. And let's see, the Iraq veteran 8888, who is based here in Georgia, by the way, and then others as well. So I've been into guns since the early 2010s and the online community, but I kind of fell out of it around, I'd say 5 years ago, because I had a move that I was making, and I needed to pay down quite a bit of debt. Some of it was related to as you know, firearms is kind of an expensive hobby, so some of it was related to that. The other bit of it was I had already gotten pretty much everything that I wanted, and I kind of hit a point where, well, everything else that I would buy, maybe I'm not that terribly interested in. And so when I moved to Texas, I kind of money maxed or save maxed for a little bit, started paying down a lot of my credit card debt and other things as well, my student loans, which I just paid off a couple of months ago. Yay. But that didn't last for long as far as, you know, bad financial decisions go. Even though I was paying down debt because I was making more money, I got into cars. And thus, that's why, you know, I got into Miatas, first of all, and I got into cars in general. That's my name and my character design and everything. So, and let me tell you something. If you think guns are an expensive hobby, no. Whether you get into cars, and I wasn't buying a car like every few weeks like I was buying a gun, but for a while there, from about 2021 until last year, I was buying a couple of old cars every year. I've been through 5 NA Miatas. I'm on my 5th one. I have an ND Miata still. But a lot of the way to save money with buying cars is knowing other people in the car community and getting a chance to drive and work on their cars with them, because it's kind of a shared experience. And so guns can kind of be the same way. They're guns that I don't have, that my friends have, that I like to shoot, and vice versa. So, but back to the topic of the stores that are in the area. I'm going to be putting out a short sometime soon about maybe 2 or 3 of the stores that I frequent in the Atlanta area every time I go back. I'm not going to tell you which ones they are, but there are places to go to if you want anything custom ordered online and shipped to an FFL, or if you want to just use their ranges. They're pretty good as far as like indoor ranges go, and also the amount of accessories that are available and parts that you might need for at least relatively common builds. One thing I did get on this trip was I got a new optic. Actually, no, not a new optic, a new light. That stream light that I got for my AR, I got it from one of the stores here on this trip, and I installed it. So, but yeah, like it was on sale. They gave me a pretty good deal on it, so I had to buy it. I didn't get a chance to go shooting while I was in Georgia, even though I had met up with some people who actually are also into guns and also regularly shoot. But hey, it is what it is, I guess. I didn't really have time, and I didn't bring anything with me, unfortunately. So I forgot how fast people drive in this area, because I'm probably doing about the speed limit in this video, which is I think 45 or 50 miles an hour, and I'm being passed by people going 60, 70 on this road. So let's see what's next on the list to yap about. Okay, so one of the things I really like, and I'm going to do a short about this as well, or a reel about this in addition to the gun stores, is that one thing that Atlanta has over any of the big cities in Texas, whether it be Dallas, Houston, or Austin, is that even though we have 4, soon to be 5 Kinokuniya locations here in Texas, none of them individually are as big or have the selection of what you have in the Atlanta location of Kinokuniya. And that place is really, really huge. I mean, as far as what you can get, there's like, there were 2 or 3 things that I bought there for some reason that were always out of stock at the locations, where I live in Texas. So I was very happy to find them in the Atlanta location, which is huge, by the way. Like I mentioned, it's the second largest, I think, in the chain for all the locations here. Oh, hello, Villain Lover. No, I'm not. Okay, so I'm not driving at the same time that I'm streaming. This is pre-recorded, just FYI. So the driving footage is. But anyway, as I was saying about Kinokuniya, this is like the store in Atlanta is their second largest as far as square footage and the amount of merchandise that's available at any one given point. I'd say as far as square footage goes, it's about 3, maybe 3.5, even 4 times the floor area of the larger stores in Texas or even California. Actually, I would say I think the only one bigger than the one in Atlanta is the flagship U.S. store, which is in New York. I haven't been to that one. The New York and the New Jersey locations, as well as the ones in the Pacific Northwest and Portland and Seattle, are the ones I haven't been to. I used to frequent the Chicago location when I was frequently going there. I've been to all the Texas locations. I've been to all the California locations too, oddly enough, because I used to make frequent trips out there back in the 2010s for job interviews and also for seeing family and friends. I've got them all over the country, so. But speaking of driving and VTubing at the same time, there is a way to do that. This is something I can yap about. I did see, and I don't know who he or she is, but there's like at least 1 or 2 like Japanese VTubers who know how to ride like a scooter or a motorcycle and then have their like VTuber character in the picture, like riding it in real time in place of like their actual, 3D selves, IRL selves. So I want to get that setup done eventually. And there's ways to do it, but you need to have something like, I think an Insta360 or some similar cameras needed. You also need to have a certain app that's on your phone. It has to be constantly running and connected online. But I have plans to do that eventually, maybe within the next year. But yeah, I know there's some people that can do that. There are at least 1 or 2 like Japanese VTubers that know how to do that, and they ride motorcycles. And the VTuber characters are actually like riding the motorcycles. I've never seen one of them live stream, but I've seen them like do the recording and then like edit it and then upload it onto YouTube. So that's one of those things. I'm not going to be riding a motorcycle, but I want to do it in my like Miata. And so you'd see me like my VTuber character Nyazda like driving one of my Miatas while IRL, in other words. That'd be so cool. Yeah, I agree. That's all right, but very small compared to Seattle. Yeah, I'm not surprised by that. I'm actually surprised Portland has 2 locations, but I figured they'd both be really small. I know the Seattle one, I think, is in one of their big Japanese supermarkets, and so they take up a bunch of space there as one of the like in-parcel stores that is within that supermarket or mall. The Chicago store is set up similarly. It's the Kinokuniya there is in the Mitsuwa marketplace. One of the ones in Dallas is also in their Mitsuwa marketplace as well, but it's the smallest store, probably in the whole chain as far as the U.S. goes. There may be 1 or 2 that are smaller in California, but the other 3 or 4 stores in Texas though are about standard as far as like the footprint goes. They're about the same size, maybe a little bit smaller than the Chicago store, and about the same size as most of the ones in California. Like there's one in Del Amo Shopping Plaza that's about the same size as the one in like as one of the ones in Texas, whether it be like in Carrollton or Austin or Katy, which is just outside of Houston. So they're opening up another Kinokuniya in Fort Worth. It's going to be in the H Mart shopping complex that's over by I think the north side of Fort Worth. They're building that, and they're basically building another Asia Town over there, which is really cool because a lot of them come to the Dallas side of the Metroplex to get their fix. But it's nice that they'll have their own area to go to whenever they feel like it. Yeah, it's in Uwajimaya. Yeah, I think Uwajimaya is a West Coast or Northwest Japanese grocery store chain. I think Mitsuwa pretty much dominates in California, though. Okay, what's next on the list? Okay, I'm going to rant a little bit about, I guess, Miatas and Miata news. Motor Week did a review of the 2025 Miata, even though the 2026s are on their way, and it's always good to see them review it. I know John Davis bought that original Mariner Blue NA that they reviewed, and he's big on them. He was big into owning Corvettes before he owned that one Miata, and I think that Miata is one of his favorite cars, if not his favorite. But it's always good to see like Motor Week do their take on the Miata, and they always have a review every now and then. The latest review they did was actually on a Miata RF, which they hadn't done since 2017 when the ND1 came out, and now they're on the ND3. Speaking of which, I'm still kind of in the market for a new a third car, whether it be a Miata or something else. And I think I mentioned in one of my rants several weeks ago or several months ago about how I had a deal fall through with one of the local Mazda dealers on a brand new NDRF. They just wouldn't come down to the price I wanted. So here's a little funny tidbit about that, by the way. Yeah, I want it in blue as well. I want deep crystal blue with the tan interior. And they had a special order it for me, but they didn't make me put any money down. So here's an interesting story about that. So I walked away from the deal. Then I found out it was sold about 3 weeks later to somebody. I don't know how much they paid for it, whether they paid full sticker or what. I told them how much I was willing to pay walking out the door, and they wouldn't come down to that. So obviously, this person offered more than I did, or was willing to come down less, or maybe paid full sticker price. So I said, okay, great. The Miata is sold. That ND that I wanted is sold. That takes the pressure off me for, going into almost 40 grand in debt again. But I get curious, and I'm constantly like looking at the market on Auto Trader for NDs. and maybe some NCs, Auto Tempest as well. And I also look at Facebook Marketplace, bring a trailer, cars and bids for NAs, NBs, and NCs as well, because NCs are starting to get to that age where you'll see them more on like auction sites or Facebook Marketplace than you will on Auto Trader or something that's geared toward cars that are less than 10 years old, obviously. The ND's been out for 11 model years. Can you believe that? 2026s are on their way, and the first model year was 2016. So who knows how long the ND3 will last. I can certainly believe that they actually want to stretch it out to 2030, definitely. That's what the rumor is, because how can you get more perfect than the ND? But I hear the next generation, assuming it's called the NE, is going to be lighter than the ND. That's kind of insane. The only way to get lighter, that would imply that it's not even going to be a hybrid, because hybrids are heavy, I think, compared to just naturally aspirated internal combustion engines. So we'll see what comes of that. I don't think it's going to be 2030. My prediction would be the 2028 model year is when we'll see the NE. So next model year will be probably the last one of the ND, but I could be proven wrong. I mean, the NE could come out next year. It could come out 2030, like some of the rumors were saying. So, but anyway, back to my rant about that ND that sold. So I check on Auto Trader every now and then, and I see another ND-RF in deep crystal blue in my area. It's a manual transmission. And I said, well, you know what? This is near, it was at a Honda dealer, I think, that was literally across the freeway from the Mazda dealer that it was sold for new at. So I thought, you know, it'd be funny if it was the same car, because I saw that the mileage was only like 4,000 miles. And I said, well, you know what? If somebody bought that car and now it's back on the used market, that would be about the number of miles that it actually has if they drove it somewhat fairly regularly. And so I click on the listing and I look through it, and then I check the VIN number, and then I go back through my emails when I'm asking for like insurance quotes, and it's the same VIN number. That is actually the car that I looked at that I turned the deal down on. And the Honda dealer that was basically across the freeway from the Mazda dealer that sold it for new, they had it with only like 4,000 miles, and they had it for about $5,000 less than what the original Mazda dealer wanted for it new. So they wanted like 36 plus taxes and fees. I was actually half tempted to go up there, look at it, and then offer them 35 or 34 out the door just to see if they would take it. Unfortunately, though, I was not in a position, and I'm not going to be in the position for the next like couple of months or so to buy a new car or spend that much money on a used car, because I'm still in kind of the process of moving. We're largely moved over to the new place. There's still some stuff I've got to take care of in the old place, since our lease at that place expires in the next month or so. And we're not 100% situated over here yet. We're about 90%. So, and then we're paying rent for like 2 different places for a couple of months. So I got to watch my finances. Also, I owe taxes this year to Uncle Sam, like I've done every year for the past 5 years or so. That's just what happens when you don't donate enough money to your, make enough individual contributions to, I guess, NGOs or charities or your 401k or something like that. But yeah, so they're taking money from me this year again. So I've got to keep my powder dry a little bit as far as like my finances go for the next couple of months. Then I might feel limber and buy a new car. But I have so many plans too for the summer that involve spending money, including conventions I'll go to, which is going to be part of this rant a little bit later on in the video. But yeah, I just thought it was really funny that whoever had it apparently sold it just 3 months later to a Honda dealer. I'm going to assume that they sold it to that Honda dealer because they wanted something bigger but still sporty. So I'm going to assume that they traded that in for a Type R, an FL5. because, oh my gosh, it has more room, more horsepower. The Miata wasn't for me. I want front wheel drive, you know, so, which, I mean, I'm not saying it's an upgrade or a downgrade. It is something different. I don't knock people who drive Hondas. I own 4 of them. I took most of them above 200,000 miles. I don't know that the current Hondas can make it that far, because I know Honda's been having QC issues for the past few years. So I do have friends who own Type R Civics, though. I know somebody that in another few servers that I frequent, he owns an FK8. I know 2 different FL5 owners, one of them on Instagram. But yeah, like I said in a previous rant, I'm a little bit sour about getting back into Honda, primarily because I was denied a test drive of an FK8 back in 2020 when I was ready to buy something new, or I was kind of entering the new car market, or the lightly used car market. And I went down the road, test drove an Indy Miata, and I kind of knew I was going to get an Indy Miata within the next year or so. And voila, I did, August of that year, even though I made the test drive of the first Indy Miata as well as that Civic in December of the previous year, 2020. So let's catch up on chat here. Yeah, that Miata Indy Blues. Yeah, I agree. Blue is the best color on a Miata. That's my favorite color. I think Soul Red is a little bit overplayed. I'm not trying to start like a red versus blue argument or anything, but yeah, I like blue better. Okay, so when you go into like a negotiation for one of these cars, what's like reasonable for a used one? It really depends, because I think before you go in for a negotiation, you have to do some market research, not just nationwide, but what those cars go for in your particular area. And so depreciation is just, it's not totally random, but it can vary significantly depending on which car you're talking about. And so Hondas tend to have good resale value. A lot of FK8s that have less than 50,000 miles are still selling for, you know, well over $30,000, $40,000. And what were they? They were like about 50 something new, excluding markups. So yeah, they hold their value really well. And so it because they don't depreciate that much, sometimes it is better to get a new version, even if you're paying more, because of 2 things. Number one, the warranty. Most new car manufacturers warranty their cars. What standard seems to be 5 years or 60,000 miles, whichever comes first. Or maybe 5 years, 70,000 miles, 75,000 miles, something like that. It's going to be something in that range. And even if your car is a daily driver, you're going to be able to squeeze every bit of that warranty out of the value of the car anyway. So that's one consideration for buying new over used, is that the depreciation rate doesn't make it to where it makes sense to buy used, number one. Number two, you have to look at, assuming you're not going to pay cash for the car and you're going to finance it instead, which in many cases these days is actually the smarter thing to do. It really depends on the interest rate that you get on the loan or the note. A lot of new cars are going to have deals where you're paying 0% if you put a certain amount of money down, or you make the term 36 or 48 months. Not one of these long terms like 72 or 84. I would avoid those unless you can get a stupidly low interest rate. My Indy Miata is actually on a 75-month note, and I'm only paying 2.5% APR. That's practically unheard of for a used car today, so why pay it off anytime soon? The rate of inflation is higher than the interest rate I'm paying on it. So if I paid the car off early, I'd actually be losing money, because that's money that's going towards servicing that debt or paying down that debt, rather than money that I could throw like at an appreciating asset, whether it be stocks or whether it be older Miatas like NAs or something like that. So it's just about opportunity cost, about what you do with your money. So when you're talking about new versus even lightly used, let's just say less than 20 or 30,000 miles. With new, it's very easy to come upon specials on the interest rates. 1.9, 2.9, you see them advertised all the time on your phone, on TV, or wherever. You know, the algorithms always get you. But even lightly used cars, which if you finance them likely through a financial institution or even your own bank that you bank with regularly, that you may have other loans tied up on, you'll be lucky if you get anything below 5% APR. And when you're talking about 36, 48, even 60 months, 4.9 versus 0.9 makes a big difference as far as, you know, how much you're paying per month and the amortization of the loan, where you're paying an equal amount each month. You're paying more interest than you are principal early in the term. That's not the case. That's not as severely the case when you're talking about 0% or 0.9. That's where they get you on interest rates. So in many cases, for something that doesn't depreciate all that much, like a lot of Hondas, it makes more sense to buy new than even slightly used. Now, Mazdas and Miatas, depending on if you can get a good deal on an interest rate for something that's somewhat used, Miatas do depreciate to some extent. They don't quite hold their value, and their value can be very cyclical and variable because they're convertibles. They tend to be valued a little bit more during the summer months than the winter months, and that variation is much larger than what you would have in a regular car. It's like something with a fixed roof. And so I think with Miatas, it's easier to find good deals on used things. And so when you're looking at what the best deal is for whether it's a Miata or Type R Civic or whatever it is that you're going to buy, I think the interest rate on new versus used is what's going to matter the most. And how do you negotiate that? Well, you have to look at it from the dealer's perspective as well. Every car that remains on their lot is a sunk cost until it leaves their lot and they can get either the cash out of that car from the sale or get the car off their lot via a loan that they may get some kickbacks off of as well, in addition to the money that they're going to get from the financial instrument. And so a dealer doesn't want to sit on cars. They want to move them. So I would say, if go on AutoTrader and see what is considered a good price and a great price on new or lightly used cars, and see what great price is across the board for cars of similar mileage and similar trim levels that you would want. And then take that knowledge, and then when you go to the dealer, say, this is how much you want to pay out the door. And when you say out the door, it means taxes included, it means any hidden fees, it means any other bullshit or snake oil they want to sell you. And the other thing is, try to negotiate all that snake oil out of the deal. The only thing you should be paying extra for is obviously sales tax, registration, titling, those kinds of fees, maybe destination. But they'll try and sell you things like free car washes for the year, free oil changes for the year. Free oil changes maybe aren't that bad if you're too lazy or you don't really know how to change your own oil. I think that's okay. But when I bought my ND down at a dealer in San Antonio, they wanted to throw in free car washes as part of the deal. And I said, no, take those car washes off and lower the base, lower the deal by like $1,000. And they did. And I explained, look, I live in another part of the state. I'm never going to use any of the car washes that are around here that would actually accept this card. The other thing that dealers will try to sell you on is paint protection or appearance packages. I'm not talking about aero that's on the car, like spoilers, wings, door sills, that sort of thing, weather mats. What they try and sell you on is PPF protection and tinted windows, which is fine, I guess, to get all that. But don't try, if you know a guy who can, and you intend to install PPF, and by the way, I honestly don't care that much about PPF because most of the cars I don't drive them hard, but I drive them regularly enough that whatever rock chips are on them that I get from the road, if I'm going to keep a car for 3 or 4 years, it's not going to make any bit of difference as far as like, you know, protection goes. Because here's what they do. Like, you try and buy a car new and they sell you, oh, the PPF protection will help keep the paint lasting longer. PPF is like an extra $1,500, $2,000. And here's the thing. When the car depreciates, if you're going to sell that car, which, you know, there's a 90, 95, there's I think an NC that turned to the right or left, by the way, into that driveway. Anyway, what I was saying, when you factor in the $1,500 or $2,000 that the dealer taxes on for PPF or tinted windows, let's just stick to PPF. That extra PPF does not add a single dollar's worth of value to the car if you're going to trade it in to another dealer, say after you've paid off the note, or if you're gonna keep the car for longer than 3 or 4 years. If you're gonna keep the car forever, then maybe, but I'll tell you what, PPF has to be reapplied every few years too. And if you live in a climate where you get a lot of sun, especially in maybe not the whole southern United States, but especially the southwestern United States, from Texas over to Southern California, the sun, the UV rays from the sun are going to make the clear coat of your paint turn to garbage, and it's going to start peeling. And if you want to keep your car looking in good condition without garaging it 90% of the time, you're going to have it repainted after about 10, 15 years anyway. So yeah, PPF I'm not sold on as something that's worth getting. I think it's, when dealers sell it as kind of an add-on to the price of a new car, I think it's snake oil. So PPF protection and tinted windows, that kind of thing, that is something that I would try to negotiate out of the price. So yeah, don't pay sticker. And I would say for a new car, if you're getting you'll get a good deal, I think, if you include taxes and all that fees. If you're not paying more than the MSRP or sticker price with all that included, then I would say you're good, because taxes and all those fees pretty much add 8, 9, 10% to the total MSRP of the car. So let's just say Indy Miata is $40,000 before all the fees. If you can walk out the door with by only paying $40,000, that means that they've lowered the base price before they tack all the fees to about $36,000, maybe $37,000. That should give you a perspective of what a good deal is on a new car. Some people try and go lower than that, but dealers probably won't go lower than that unless something's been sitting on the lot for a while and they have to move it. So that's what I'll say about that. Already came out and said they do not want to make a hybrid. Tech is too heavy, if I'm right. Yeah, I think you're right, and I think I was right too, because there was talks about it being a hybrid because Mazda wanted to do electrification across their entire line to some degree, whether it be full electrification or hybrid. I think they've since kind of ditched that plan, and a lot of other car companies have as well. And I don't think the Miata is going to be hybrid drivetrain for the next generation. I think they're going to go with, I can believe them going with a 2.5 and having above 200 horsepower. So we're going to switch to another video now. This is the part of the video that's more like freeway driving in the area. And so we're going to be going through the northeast suburbs of Atlanta, and we're going to hit up downtown and a few of the northern suburbs as well. So while I continue to yap. Okay, so I've ranted about gun stores, I've ranted about Kinokuniya, I've ranted about Miatas. So the next big topic I wanted to rant about was the whole algorithm on Twitter or X changing, and now like JP and US Twitter are kind of like seeing each other's tweets and merging, and the interaction has just been so fun to watch. I actually made a tweet in Japanese and got a few Japanese followers because of that, even though I already had quite a few mutual Japanese followers simply because I'm into Miatas. So I know a lot of people who own Roadsters in Japan as well as here, and vice versa. But this kind of added to that and brought new people into the fold, not just with Miatas, but some of my other interests, such as anime, firearms, I mean, you name it, even streaming, VTubing. So, but it's fun to, like, they don't auto-translate for me. I actually have to hit the translate button, but I try to read stuff out in Japanese before I actually hit the translate button. Years ago in college, I actually took 2 years of Japanese in college back years ago. And so that one tweet that I made in Japanese where I'm introducing myself and my hobbies and everything, and where I put in a disclaimer about how I don't like to use AI for translation. So I did all this based on what knowledge I could remember from, as far as Japanese goes, from years ago, and they were impressed by it. But I still want to pick up that confidence from, like, being able to speak Japanese without having to use a translator app on my phone. The last time I went to Japan, which was over 20 years ago, we didn't have smartphones. It was flip phones, and your flip phone wouldn't work overseas in other countries. You had to buy one there. You had to put in the right SIM card, because I think US was on CDMA, but Japan and Europe, I think, were on GSM. It's a lot easier nowadays because of, like, eSIMs, and I'll have to do some research next time I go overseas, which likely will be Japan, but it could be other countries. Who knows what happens? But yeah, I typed that all out in Japanese based on what I could remember. There's no AI involved, no help with, like, translation or whatever. I did use a kanji dictionary to look up a couple of words, but that was the extent of the assistance I did. So I'm old school when it comes to that, and I do plan on brushing up on my Japanese before I go visit again. So but yeah, to go on about, like, JP US Twitter, it's just so fun interacting with them. And it's weird. It's like we have so much in common and so much mutual admiration for each other's countries and cultures. And I'm not going to try and drag, like, other countries into this whole debate about, like, them talking shit about Japan or the US or whatever. I mean, there's people with good opinions and bad opinions, good views and negative views about everything. So, but it was, and it's still going on right now. It's great to see the interactions between, like, Americans and Japanese on everything that is kind of stereotypically associated with each other's culture. Like, the Japanese are apparently fascinated with our, like, Texas barbecue and, like, Waffle House and American breakfasts and everything, and it's just so fun to watch. And then they try to cook it with their ingredients, and they call all the Americans on Twitter. It's like, how do you like this? Did I do a good job? And we're sitting there clapping or giving a little bit of advice. And they're doing the same thing where we're cooking, like, making Japanese food or doing, like, stereotypically Japanese things with, like, JDM cars and whatever. So the mutual admiration and respect is very, very comfy, and I like that. It's like I've already been kind of into it, but to see it expand is great. Hopefully it stays comfy and very very mutually beneficial to each other. I gotta remember to drink liquids every now and then so I don't lose my voice. Let's do some streaming catch up. Hi, Young Tree Bark. Hi, Gaming Goddess. I think you're watching on Twitch. Okay. Okay, so I wanted to mention something. Oh, is that Houston? No, I'm in. Oh well. No, this video footage is actually in Atlanta. I went back east for a trip, so thus you see all the pine trees around and the smooth asphalt on the roads. So that's one of the things I actually love about driving around Atlanta compared to some of the bigger cities here. Is that it's so like naturally beautiful, and it's not a boring grid of streets. It's just a big spaghetti bowl of a lot of 2-lane, 4-lane, 6-lane highways and surface streets and freeways like this. And it's always hilly, and there's just lots of forest all around with random development. They keep a lot of the natural beauty intact. And, you know, from here, you're only like an hour and a half from the North Georgia mountains and the American Toge, as I like to call it, you know, Southern Appalachia, where you can, the Blue Ridge Mountains, you can just, if you're in something that is rear-wheel drive and light like a Miata, you can have a lot of fun. And that's why I want to go back to Miatas at the Gap this year and maybe every year from now on. So we'll see what happens. I didn't have a chance to go to the North Georgia mountains on this trip though. So didn't have enough time, and the weather was a little bit rainy up there if I remember correctly. So yeah, road trips are fun. It's a 12-hour drive from Dallas to Atlanta, and I made good time when I was doing it. It's just a straight shot on I-20. So, oh yeah, moving. This was the next topic I was going to talk about on my list. So, I moved relatively recently. I'm still in the same area, but me and my roommates, we'd been living in our old house for about 5 years since I moved to Texas, and our old house got us to where we are. I mean, it was, I don't want to say it was a champ, but it served our needs for quite a while, but we kind of outgrew it. Let's just say that. With the amount of money that we were bringing in and all our hobbies, we just needed something new. And so the bedrooms in our new house are a lot bigger. There's more common rooms. We have like 2.5 living rooms in the old house. This new house has like a game room as well as like a separate dining room and 3 rooms that can function as living rooms. Our kitchen's about twice the size of the old place. The bedrooms are a lot bigger. I think most important about the new place that we're at is, since it's about almost, I don't want to say it, it's almost double the size as far as square footage of our old place, and we're barely paying any more rent than we did at the old place as far as base rent goes. Enough that I alone with my income could absorb it, but I wanted the other guys to benefit too, and we're all in the mood to move. But most importantly, we've got 3 full baths. We were dealing with only 2 in the old place, where the master bedroom had 1, and then the other 3 or 4 bedrooms, I mean, they had to share another bathroom. But having a 3rd full bath makes a world of difference when you've got a big house. So still have a 2-car garage. I kind of wish we had 3 or 4 cars, but you have to move into either a newer house for that, which means dealing with a homeowners association, which is a no-go for me and at least one other roommate I have, because we like to do car stuff. And then the other thing, or the other thing you can do is you can buy a retrofitted house where, you know, a lot of older houses, they turn the garage into a 2nd bedroom or a common area. But there are houses where they just add on another garage, or they turn a room into like a carport or another 1-car or 2-car garage. And every time you see like an old house that's converted, where it used to have like a 2-car garage and now it has 2 2-car garages or a 4-car garage, it's like, yeah, that's being marketed toward car people. Definitely. It's like the meme where like car guys, car enthusiasts, where like their ideal floor plan for a house is like you have just 1 bedroom, a kitchen attached, and then like a bathroom. And then like the rest of the 2,500 square feet is just garage. And then maybe there's like another there's another room for like all the tools and parts that you need or something like that. So it's like you're turning your house into an O'Reilly's Auto Parts or an AutoZone or something like that. That may be an insult to your house though. I don't know. But yeah, we needed more space, and we're very happy with the space now. We've got so many hobbies that were kind of, I don't want to say space intensive, but we were getting into them enough that we just needed more room. Car people always need room, but in addition to stuff like, you know, firearms and watching movies and media and my own thing of, you know, streaming, one of the things that I'm going to do with this bigger bedroom is I'm going to get a bigger desk. I need to buy at least a second desk so I can make an L shape out of this, where I have one portion of the desk that's dedicated for VTubing activities, streaming, content creation like this, and another one that's dedicated toward, you know, actual work, watching anime, that sort of thing, other activities, gaming and whatnot, and kind of being able to merge the two. I make do with what I have now, and my desk is fairly big, but I feel like I'd be better served with like the classic L shape that was really popular in the 1990s, which is when I grew up. So that means having like that means having like 3 or 4 monitors on at once and having that kind of setup. Villain Lover, they definitely traded that in for a Type R. There's no way they would have. Yeah, I think I agree. When they traded in that ND, they traded it in for a Type R. I can't think of anything that you would trade in that Miata for, especially so soon after the decision. Because if it was based on a decision of like, oh, I need something with more seats because I have like a family on the way or something like that, that's not a decision that you make only 3 months after buying a Miata, because that's something most people, if they're gonna have a family or something like that, you know, they plan for that. And so the stupidest thing that you'd be able to do is like buy a 2-seat Roadster and then say, well, no, I actually need a CX-5 or a CRV or a Chevy Tahoe or a Suburban or something like that, or Ford Explorer, you know, one of those SUVs. No, they traded in. I think they traded it in for a Type R. They wanted another sports car. Maybe they just wanted more room because they did want 4 seats because it felt less claustrophobic. But it's not like those 4 seats are going to be occupied all the time. Yeah, I 100% agree with that. But yeah, moving's fun. It can make you feel accomplished, but there's a lot of BS that is associated with it as well. Just the number of trips. We were able to borrow a friend's truck, but I was taking all the important stuff first. I was moving all my anime figures. I was moving all my plushies. I must have made 5 round trips a day for 4 days straight to move all my weeb shit and stuff out of the old house to the new house. Thankfully, I didn't have to drive very far. But imagine moving all that stuff and having to take that many trips because you're moving everything in a Miata. And so the only room that's there is basically the entire front seat, the parcel shelf, that's where the top folds back, by the way, and then the trunk. And so I couldn't carry like big boxes to make them fit in there. I just had to package the figures really carefully and throw a bunch of little boxes and gather a bunch of garbage bags to shove all my plushies in. They're still sitting in my bathroom, by the way. I'll take a picture soon enough. But yeah, I must have made at least 20, 30 round trips in my Miata moving all that stuff. And the big stuff, which was like, you know, my desk, my bed, a few pieces of furniture, we took that in the truck. But everything personal, like figures, computer stuff, my clothes, that was all in the Miata. And I know if I had like a Civic hatchback or whatever, it would have been 5 trips instead of 20, but that's not going to make me sell my Miata. Sorry about that. No. But yeah, we're very happy with the new place. We have over 3,000 square feet to work with, and it's not at all claustrophobic. I love our new kitchen. We have a gas stove, and it cooks so much better than electric. I'm kind of sold on it as far as like gas being better than electric when it comes to cooking. We got a new fridge with French doors, so we can store all kinds of stuff in there and keep things much more organized. I love it. I mean, we've got an island as well in the kitchen to where you can like keep cereal or prepare foods and even like, you know, work on a laptop or something like that. Connect that way, browse the internets. So yeah, I'm very happy with it. And speaking of which, moving was the reason, like I said, that I really couldn't pull the trigger on getting a new car. That isn't to say I won't get like a cheap used car or another shitbox. I have been looking at other NA, NB, and NC Miatas as a possibility, so we'll see what comes of that. Doing some technical checks on the stream to make sure everything is going well. Okay, segueing into other things, like I mentioned about buying more Miatas or buying more cars. Yeah, I am still in the market for a third car, basically because I do have plans to Itasha one of my cars, put a wrap on it. I am probably, so I am stuck between about 2 or 3 characters. Most likely, if I do an anime character, it is going to be Len from Gun Gale Online. Part of that I ranted about in another video. I had a strange dream or premonition driving on these very roads that you're seeing in this video right now around Atlanta, where I was in a white Miata that I think was an ND, and it had a Len wrap on it, and I could hear music playing in the background like everywhere, but it was like the apocalypse. So it was like the Atlanta and Walking Dead, and it was to a song that's in the series called Pilgrim. And it was just constantly playing in the background, and I was just tearing up the roads with no traffic on the road. It was like the zombie apocalypse, and I'm like, well, I hope if I wrap my car in, you know, I have Len on it, and I go to MomoCon or AWA and and drive around Atlanta or showcase the car there, that it's not during a zombie apocalypse. But yeah, that's the main reason I'm leaning toward doing Len. If I had to do another VTuber for as a wrap, I don't know. There could be like 3 or 4 I choose from. You know, the problem I run into is like all the ones I really like can be really popular, and I know there are already people who've done Itashas of those. If I do an Itasha, it's got to be a unique character that nobody's done before, but that a lot of people will recognize. And I know that's like almost impossible to achieve, but I think I can achieve it. So, but yeah, the Itasha wrap is one reason that I need a third car. If I buy something like a new ND, that's going to be my new daily driver, and then my current ND will be the car that's wrapped. I am not going to wrap my 96M edition. That is my pride and joy. I'm keeping it the way it is, mostly stock. It's OEM plus, but the only mods to it are the roll bar, the BC Racing coilovers, and yeah, that's it. Everything else is stock about it. There are a few things I need to fix with it. but nothing major. So, but if I get another shitbox, rather, I'm going to keep my current ND for a while and keep it as my daily driver. Like, if I get like another NA or maybe an NB or an NC, NBs and NCs are kind of almost the same price now. Like, NAs are appreciating, NBs have hit bottom, NCs are almost there. They're still depreciating a little bit, but you can get good examples of all three of those generations for at or a bit under 10 grand. NDs haven't depreciated that much yet. The floor for a low mileage under 100,000 mile ND is still going to run about 15, 16 grand, which is still remarkable. If you can find an ND2 at that price, especially, ND1s you can find at that price all day long. But yeah, if I get if I get a used NB or NC and it's low miles, that's probably gonna be the car that I'll wrap. And so let me segue a bit. Besides Itasha's, I'm gonna rant a little bit about cons. I went to WeebCon this past weekend here in Texas, and I enjoyed the con just about as much as I've enjoyed most anime cons I've been to since COVID. There have been a few that I've enjoyed quite a lot, like AX, not last year, but the year before, 2024, which I road tripped to. But here's what I'm going to say about WeebCon, as well as most other anime cons I've been to since then. There's almost no originality left. And by that I mean they basically have the same thing. It's the same dealers selling the same stuff. There's no uniqueness as far as like the collectibles that might be available to find, the types of panels and events that are available, the people who go to those cons, cosplay crowd and everything. They become almost a little bit too, maybe a little bit too normie for my taste, I guess. And that's not an insult to people who are into anime now or anything like that, but I don't have the fun that I used to have going to conventions, anime conventions these days, which is probably why I'm less willing to drive cross country or to another state to an anime convention these days. I stick to the ones in Texas. I may go to like a MomoCon or an AX here and there because I'll have friends going to those cons. And that's really what the enjoyment I get out of going to conventions is hanging out with friends and doing the same activities as them because they share the same passions that I do. And I'm getting to the point where I enjoy like VTubing activities and panels and other things at cons now. And I know anime cons are slowly starting to adopt those, but Offkai Expo last year was a watershed moment for me because I had not enjoyed a con that much since I went to anime cons in the 2000s. Because VTuber cons today feel like anime cons did back then. Have maybe about 8, 10, 12,000 people, not 50,000 or 100,000. It's still largely underground. There's not as much corporate bullshit. There's still largely a fan-driven atmosphere. And that's what I love about them. And so this year I'm going to FaZeCon. I'm also going to Offkai Expo. One of my friends told me about a VTuber convention in Canada up in Toronto. I think it's called Oshi Uplink, and it's at the beginning of May. Don't think I'll be able to make that because that's on such short notice, and I got to plan these things out in advance, especially if I have to fly cross-country or to another country. I'm about, I won't say 50-50, but there's a 25% chance I may cross the ocean and attend Vexpo or VExpo. I don't know what it's called. I think it's Vexpo. over in the UK later this year. So we'll see, because I've heard good things about that. I've seen the pictures from last year. Sounds like Europe's version of Offkai, but we'll see. But any VTuber conventions that are out there, like I wanna go to more of them, because I want to get that feeling that I got from anime conventions back in years gone by. Not to say that I'll quit going to anime conventions anytime soon. I still have fun at them, but VTuber conventions are more where it's at for me at this stage of where my fandoms are. So to rant a little bit more about WeebCon, besides some of the things that I found in the dealer's room or the exhibitor's hall, the place I felt most at home and in my element at the con was the Oshi Lounge upstairs. And I felt like, yeah, it's like being back at Offkai again. And I need that feeling. So I have not been to WeebCon yet. If you like anime conventions, I would recommend going. The parking situation is a little bit bad, but don't follow the sign. See if you can actually park in the hotel parking garage, even if it's worth the extra money. Let's just say that. San Japan is a really fun con. Yes, it is. Of all the anime conventions I've been to since 2020 or 2021, the three that I've had the most fun at, I would say, would be San Japan, AX year and a half ago in 2024, and then Anime Matsuri back in 2021. But Anime Matsuri has an asterisk by it in my opinion, because it had an unfair advantage that year. That year, a lot of conventions canceled their in-person events and went online for 2021, and then they couldn't get back their spaces. So Anime Matsuri was really the only large anime convention that took place in person that year, because it took place at like the dip of COVID. Because in 2021, people started getting vaxxed and COVID cases started dropping through the first half of the year. And then June, July, there were hardly any new cases, and then the Delta wave hit. And then COVID started becoming, getting in the news again. So Anime Matsuri took place right at that dip where there was very little worry or anything about COVID. And so a lot of guests, a lot of people, and especially a lot of Itasha owners that were on the West Coast and the East Coast of the United States, they caravanned actually from both coasts to Houston to go to that convention. And that was the biggest and best Itasha display that I think you will ever see at any anime convention ever in the United States, because of those unique circumstances. There were almost 100 Itasha cars there from all over the country, because that was the only place they could go to and they could showcase, and it was organized right for them. So I don't think something like that will ever happen again. So that's why it's kind of unique. As far as like normal anime conventions go, yeah, I had a lot of fun at AX a couple of years ago, but AX is one of those cons I don't feel the need to go to every year. I went 4 separate years in the 2010s. I went 2012 through 2014. I went through at 2017, where it had a lot of overcrowding issues. 2024, they've managed the crowd control issues now with how they spread out the security and the one-way walkways in the con. Yeah, it's a bit more spread out now, but I think that makes it run a lot more efficiently and makes it a little less claustrophobic. But yes, San Japan is the best con in Texas, by far, of all the anime conventions. I've been the past 2 years. I plan on going again this year. I don't know if I'll have an Itasha by then, but all my friends go there, and I'm going to be doing the same thing. So I had fun last year, had fun the year before. It's a good excuse to escape during Labor Day weekend, so I'm going to have at it. But yeah, con plans this summer. FazeCon, maybe AX, because I think Hololive is doing their EN concert that same weekend. So I'm kind of 50-50 on attending that, but even if I don't go to the concert, I know there's going to be a lot of Hololive fans there and a lot of related activities. which I could be down with participating in. So that's the main reason that I would be going to AX if I decide to go. But FaceCon is like 100%, OffCon is 100% for me. AX is probably 50-50. San Japan is 100%. Anime Matsuri is probably going to take place in July, but that's going to be 50-50 for me depending on what weekend it is. I haven't looked it up. And then, San Japan I'm going to go to. Vexpo is also kind of like, not 50-50, but maybe 25-75, that chance that I'll go. I've got friends that want me to come to cons back east or in the Midwest, to Otakon and to Youmacon and to Anime Central as well. I used to regularly go to Anime Central back in the 2000s and early 2010s because, as you may know, and I mentioned in previous streams, I lived in Chicago for 2 years when I went to grad school there, and I have a lot of friends who are based in Chicago. A lot of them have moved to other places, but some of them I think maybe still go to ASIN. So may be able to do something and go there again, but but we'll see. Definitely going to San Japan against this year. Need to start preparing cosplays. Yeah, anytime that you go to a convention and you're doing a lot of activities that involve like intensive amounts of work and preparation for, it's just something you have to plan months in advance. And I know like Itasha owners are like that too, when they have to like put in the applications for getting their car over there and then making sure all the maintenance is up to date as well. And I feel you there as far as cosplay goes. I've cosplayed at a few conventions as well. Nothing too intense, and I don't cosplay at every convention, but yeah, like the logistics of actually making sure that, you know, your costume is not going to get lost in the luggage or whatever, or get mishandled or by TSA, or like ripped to shreds, or your bags open for search and then they're sifting through like all the parts of your cosplay. When I cosplayed fairly frequently in the 2000s, I would cosplay a lot of characters that had capes as part of their costume. And that's because fantasy and adventure was really popular back in the 90s and 2000s. And those were the types of anime that a lot of people were watching. So I cosplayed a character from a series called Lost Universe, aka Slayers in Space, called Kane Blue River. He's the main character in that series. So I cosplayed him for a few conventions back in the 2000s, including a couple of Otakons. I've cosplayed Shink Izumi, who is the main character in an anime called Dog Days from the early 2010s. And he has a huge cape as part of his costume. That's kind of optional, but it's better if you wear it. So the other thing that is kind of weird about cosplaying, especially for me, and maybe this applies to everything else, is if you're cosplaying any characters that have long hair and you yourself don't have long hair, wig physics are a science is a science in and of itself, because artificial hair doesn't behave the same way and follow the same physics as real hair. I did dye my hair for a few cosplays back in the 2000s, because with short-haired anime characters, even though my hair was up to shoulder length back then, it was a little bit easier to do in some cases. But if you're cosplaying a character with long hair past your shoulders, it's kind of difficult to get the physics right, especially if there's like, you know, waves or curls in the hair as well. And so you have to style it. And styling wigs, I'm not a subject matter expert on. I do have friends who help me with that whenever, you know, a wig needs styling, but it's not something I'm terribly picky on. So, but yeah, I feel for anybody who has to prep cosplays, especially the props or the accessories that are more than just, you know, regular clothing, that have, you know, special features like capes. Capes are so fucking cool. We need to bring them back and make them popular again. Yeah, I don't blame you for hating styling wigs. Let's see how many minutes of footage I have left. I'm gonna have to talk for another 30 minutes. That's okay though. Oh, you know something else I can rant about? Okay, so I don't know if it's the Twitter's algorithms, but I've been getting a lot more posts in my feed about anniversaries of anime airing back in the day. And I don't mean just like 15, 20 years ago, because I can definitely understand that. Like this season is the this season is the 20th anniversary, I think, of Haruhi Suzumiya airing the first season. And then it's also like the 19th anniversary of Lucky Star, the anime airing. Um, but there are a number of series. It's like, yeah, this such and such series aired 7 years ago, 9 years ago, and it just makes you wonder just how much time has flown. You know, like the like Senko-san aired seven, yeah, 7 years ago this week, back in the spring of 2019. It was one of those anime that was the year right before COVID. And they're saying this about like a lot of series. Yeah, Koos, you better go watch it. You need to watch all of these anime. If you have already watched it, you should watch it again. I feel like watching Senko-san again this weekend just for the hell of it. You know, and just get because it's so comfy. It's such a wholesome anime. Nanoja. Maybe I'll do it while I'm doing the laundry. I cosplayed Homer Akemi. I just died here. Yeah, yeah. I don't blame you for that. But yeah, like I was saying, that nostalgia. It's nostalgia bait, and I think the algorithms are like programming us for that. And it's from like two different Twitter accounts that have lots of followers. I think one of them has over 1 million. I think one of them's like Toon Hive or Toon Hub or something like that, and another has I think anime in their name. But yeah, like there's something about like on this day in 1995, the first season of Slayers aired. On this day, 30 years ago, Slayers Next, the second season of Slayers aired. That was a great show, by the way. Second season is best if you want to watch Slayers. I'd recommend watching all three seasons, though. You can watch the fourth and fifth seasons, which aired back in 2008 and I think 2009. Revolution and Evolution Mesh just to get your Slayers fixed. But to me, the OG is the first is the original three seasons of Slayers and the OVAs and the movies from the 90s. Bros Unk. What else can I talk about? Apparently, my stream on cleaning my UMP was very popular the other night. I don't want to say very popular as in, oh my God, 1,000 people viewed it, but I got a lot of positive comments about it from people I know and people I don't know on it. And like, that's not going to be the last gun related stream that I do at all, of course. I've got plenty of gun related content I can post, even if I don't have like dozens and dozens of firearms available, like a lot of people do. Because there's so many ideas behind one particular object or one particular main idea, and then so many sub ideas below it. Guns are like that, cars are like that. Like, I could do, and anytime I have an idea for like a stream or a video or something like that, I like to write it down on pen and paper. So let's just take my UMP for example. Okay. I have at least half a dozen ideas for videos related to it. The easiest one was, of course, taking it apart, cleaning it, putting the light on it was kind of like half a stream. Other stream ideas related to the UMP is like one of my plans for a gun related stream is to do a UMP and MP5 comparison, where I break both guns apart, tell you about the advantages, disadvantages of most, things to look out for. Another example of that is I'm going to compare HK's polymer guns. I'll compare the UMP to G36. I have clones of both. And they both came out in that same era. And we'll see what the differences are in the design and why the G36 is designed the way it is for a 5.56 cartridge and why the UMP is designed the way that it is. So that's another idea for a stream. Another stream idea I have that's related to all the HK clone guns that I have is just to do a general review of the whole roller lock family. That means I only have two, to be honest. I have an MP5 clone. I have an HK33 clone as well. So I can do one of those streams where I compare, 9mm out of a roller lock gun versus 5.56 out of a roller lock gun. No, I don't have a G3, in case you're wondering though. I came close to buying one at least a couple of times, but 308's really expensive right now, and I don't get as... To me, I talk about the law of diminishing marginal return. Getting a gun in 308 where the same or similar design gun is available in 5.56 to me is not enough of an upgrade or consideration to make it worth buying that gun. Now, here's something I do have. Almost all my guns are either worth less than $500 or are more than $2,000. I don't have anything that's really in the middle. And one of the guns that I got for cheap that I really, really freaking enjoy is, okay, so I'm a big fan of shotguns. And that means tactical shotguns. So I mentioned in a previous stream, I have two Vepr 12 short-barreled shotguns. So my AK fix is satisfied that way. But I also have one of those Turk shit G3 12 gauge guns by I think Panzer Arms is the one that distributes them. And you think, oh, I bet it's so cheap, the charging handle will break, it won't last 500 rounds. I've already taken it to the range once, and everybody I know wants to shoot that thing. It's because it is so fun. I mean, you can do the HK slap on a shotgun. Think about it. That's just amazing. And it's a 12 gauge. It feels like a G3 when you place it against your shoulder and then you fire it, except when you fire it and you feel the recoil, it's a 12 gauge. It's not a 308. And most ranges only allow slugs or double-aught buck, especially if they're like indoor ranges. So you're getting a shoulder workout when you do that. But that gun is so fun to shoot. I can't wait to take it out to the range again. I will do so a content idea that's related to that besides the roller lock family is I can review that gun. There are only 4 or 5 reviews of that gun on YouTube right now. I can make it a 6 and I can be the only VTuber who's reviewed that gun. But then now that I've said that, maybe somebody like, I don't know, Mr. J-Mez or Gotcha Guns will go out and try and review that gun and beat me to it. Maybe they'll spend $300 just to do that. But hey, I already have it, so that's a stream idea that I have. 308 is always expensive, yes, but it's really expensive relative to other cartridges right now. The last time I owned any guns that were in 308 was in the late 2010s. I had all 3 length variants of the Springfield M1A. So I had the SOCOM 16, I had the Scout Squad, I had the original. And back then I could get 20 rounds of PPU 308 for about $13 a box at Cabela's. It was always on sale. Now you can't find 308 for less than like $25 for for 20 rounds. It's yeah, you're shooting dollar bills when you shoot 308 these days. It's really amazing to think if you would have told somebody that 5.7 by 28 is cheaper per round than 308 now, they would have called you crazy 10 years ago. But now that's the case. You can get 50 rounds of 5.7 for like $25. I honestly think that's better. 5.7 is basically the same price as 45 ACP nowadays. So do think of that if you're thinking about like getting a P90 or a 5.7 or one of those half a dozen other guns that have since come out in that take that cartridge. I think retro anime account does that. It posts like it, yeah. There are retro anime VTubers as well, and that's one of those things that I do want to cover. One of the ideas I had for content creation, since I am an unk, I guess, was to go back and see and do a little bit of digging and see what I can find on the on YouTube and other corners of the interwebs about conventions from back in the 2000s through maybe the early 2010s, just to give a sneak peek of what those cons were like. Maybe it'll be like react videos to con footage from back then, or reviewing programming books and programming guides, a lot of which I do have. I just have to go digging through all my boxes of collectibles. Some of it is not at the house I currently live in. Some of it is at my parents' house back east. So I'll have to fetch some of that material next time I'm over there. One of the things that I did find, though, and this doesn't even go back to the 2010s, is that one of my roommates and I, we attended the same Miku Expo concert back in 2016, because he showed me his ticket to that concert, and I was like, I was there. Where were you standing? Where were you sitting? Because we probably passed each other, and we didn't know each other back then. But he had the same drinks at the bar that I did, so... But he showed me the glow stick that he had as part of his like package that he got, and then I pulled out my glow stick from that same concert, and we bonded over that. That was just so amazing. It's so great when you find stuff like that after the fact. So yeah, I was super excited about that. Oh, so another stream idea I had, because I had a few people ask me questions about this when I did my Streamlight stream a couple of weeks ago and installed it on my AR. I mentioned the process of dyeing the Magpul furniture that's on that gun, because that gun looks like it's straight from 2011, 2012, because it practically is. About how you dye Magpul furniture into different colors that weren't from Magpul's factory. How do you get a color that's not flat dark earth or coyote tan or black or OD green or plum or something like that? And there's ways to do it. RIT dye is the most common way to do it, but you have to get furniture that is of a very light color in the first place. And so one of my ideas for a stream is to actually, maybe if I do a hand cam stream and I can do it in my kitchen, is to go over the process of actually dyeing Magpul, MOE, or M-LOK furniture into the colors you want with RIT dye. The easiest furniture to find is probably going to be PMags, but I'm going to have to get lucky and find PMags that are available in the colors that are dyeable for that. And so what I'll do is I'll keep an eye out on the market and any gun stores I go to. And if I see any PMags in very light colors like flat dark earth, or ideally a color called sand, which was almost pure white and was only done for a couple of years back, I think around 2015 and 2016. If I find any PMags that are in the color sand, I'll buy a bunch of them and I'll do a stream on dyeing that Magpul furniture. Now, granted, YouTube is kind of a little bit strict on firearms related content and live streaming that. And so if I do a live stream of that, even though it's not firearms, it's firearm accessories. It's only going to be on Twitch and Kick. So, but yeah, that's another content idea I have. I've got them all written down. I also can review guns and show you how to clean guns that aren't necessarily mine. When you're in the gun community, you have lots of friends who have guns that are different from yours. And, I could always borrow them, clean it for them, and say, I'll clean it for free as long as you let me stream the cleaning. So that's another possibility for content. And I have some friends who own some pretty unique stuff. Let's just say that. I'm going to do some more content as well on certain maintenance things that you can do with a Miata, such as timing belt change. I got to replace my EGR valve gasket in my NA, so I'll probably do a YouTube short slash Instagram reel on that. I've just been too lazy to do that, but I'm going to try and get that done within the next couple of weeks before the weather starts getting really hot, like it likes to do in Texas in May. So look for that soon. I still have raw content to go through, about like a dozen different videos. So I'm just figuring out what to do with all of that. I do have friends in the car community who've gotten some rather unique cars recently from Japan. And so I might have content on those cars and doing some things with those cars, maybe some driving videos. So I have a friend who recently got a Toyota Crown Wagon, and I have another friend who recently got a Spec R Sylvia. And so they like what I do. They follow me. They've been asking me to do content on what they have. So I will oblige. And so look for that within the next few weeks as well. Let's see, what else is there to go over? Oh, I'll do a few more hand cam streams for restaurant food reviews as well. I've already done Chick-fil-A, I've done Wendy's, I've done Portillo's. Next up on the list will probably be In-N-Out Burger, Culver's, a few others of those chains. So look for those soon. Other content that's coming. Car related, I do have access to an NB that's not modified all that much. And so one of my friends has asked me to do some content on it and do a comparison video between a clean example of an NA and a clean example of an NB. And so I'll do some footage and then maybe do some content related to the NB, or maybe do an NA slash NB comparison in some future shorts or reels. So P. Terry's. What's P. Terry's? I have to search this up. Oh, it's a burger chain. Okay. One thing I do want to do, living where I live, is I'll do reviews of barbecue chains or barbecue restaurants as well. So look for that. Pizza joints as well. Um, I live near a couple of really good pizza joints that serve like New York style pizza that you can get by the slice. So I might do a review of that. So yeah, there's just lots of stuff I can do over the next, several weeks, several months. I've got enough as far as like content ideas goes. And that doesn't even get into like any React videos or any like gaming that I do. I haven't done a gaming stream in a while, and the only gaming streams I've done have been Uma Musume and Girls Frontline. Um, I was gonna do an Uma Musume stream, but for some reason, when I logged into my Uma Musume account, I tried to see what it took to get Kita-san Black because I really like Kita-san Black. She's one of my favorite Uma Musume characters. But apparently you have to pay to get her. You can't use free carrots, which is odd. So that kind of turned me off to that idea. Girls Frontline, though, they've released a few characters that I like recently. UMP 40 and Submod. So I might pick up Girls Frontline 2 Exilium again just to get those two characters and see what I can do with them. So there might be a stream soon, on another GFL stream soon. And other games that I want to get into, back into, some of the old games that I want to pick up where I left off on that I mentioned previously. I'm trying to think of games from like the 90s and the 2000s. So I have it. I will probably do. There's two games I have in mind that I want to stream that are not gacha games. They're actually like originally they were on console or PC, and they're available on Steam. One of them is the SimCity series, which I grew up with. I grew up with the original as well as 2000. 3000 as well as SimCity 4 are available on Steam. So I might buy one of those two and kind of pick up where I left off and do that as a strategy game. A lot of Zoomers, I guess, or younger folks are getting into or know of Cities and Skylines and Cities Skylines 2. Apparently that's an even better game that kind of built off of SimCity, but I have almost no familiarity with those games. So I might do that instead of SimCity, but I'm going to have to watch a few tutorials and what other gamers have done and see if I can get into it. I might do both for all I know. As far as playing another Japanese RPG, if you want to call it an RPG, I think I would classify it as an RPG. I was a huge, and I mean huge, .hack fan back in the 2000s. I played all four of the original games from start to finish. I played all of the GU series as well. GU is available as Last Recode on Steam. So I would love to play the original series because I love the controls based on the original series a lot more than GU. But because GU is the only one that's available on Steam right now, and that's the easiest way for me to stream gaming, I'll probably start out with GU pretty soon as far as like a gaming stream goes for any action/RPG games. To play the originals, I mean, there are probably various sources I can find them from. The easiest way to do it, though, would be just to find the games, which means getting an old PS2. And those games are now expensive, though. If you get like, the actual PS2 releases, especially the first one. But I could play those via the PS2 and the original PS2 controller, and then stream them, I guess, through a capture card. That would be the perfect way to get into, gaming and streaming through my computer that way. I know there are people who have very, to use an old school world, they have very elite setups for their wares. So So yeah, that's something I'm excited about. I just gotta find the time to do that and get through all my other content first. But look for that within the next few weeks or months. So I think I have only about 5 minutes to go left. So if you've been tuned into this stream, this driving stream, thanks for joining me. I hope you enjoyed watching me drive around Atlanta, Georgia. And I always enjoy it when I get a chance to go back. I drive a lot of the roads there. Maybe next time I go back east, I'll be able to take my Miata to the North Georgia mountains. Or maybe I might have another car I can drive there that I'll take up there. So, but yeah, like I said, I'm going to start streaming content or posting content a bit more regularly. I'm making it a habit to stream at least twice a week. Most likely, Thursdays, I almost always stream. If it's any other day of the week that I'm going to stream, it's probably going to be Monday or Tuesday, maybe a Saturday. Tuesday is the most common day for me to stream besides Thursday, but I have been known to do Mondays like I did earlier this week. And then I'm going to get back into regularly posting a YouTube short / Instagram reel / TikTok video at least once a week. Typically, most of my previous ones have dropped on Sunday mornings because it takes me a couple hours to do all the takes and do all the production work for one. And that just involves me waking up on any particular Sunday, having my coffee, and then getting to work on making those shorts. And so I'll get in the habit of doing that every Sunday morning or most every Sunday morning again. So yeah, look for new content most Thursdays, most Sundays, and then probably either a Monday or a Tuesday, depending on when I feel like streaming, when it's convenient, when I'm not being dragged out by friends or other people to hang out or do errands for them. I actually had to do an errand for one particular friend this evening, but I wasn't going to stream until like 9 or 9:30 tonight anyway, so I have time to do it. But another thing that I'm going to stream as far as food goes is maybe noodle / ramen shops. That's another thing. The problem with streaming ramen is that ramen, once it gets soggy, it's almost inedible. And it'll start getting soggy after about 15 or 20 minutes. Ramen is one of those things that if you want to eat it correctly, you have to eat it right out of it being boiled. So that's going to be a little bit difficult to do. But like maybe Japanese, Korean, Vietnamese, any Asian type dishes, I could do reviews of those as well. But anyway, thanks for watching this stream. Thanks for listening to me yap for almost 2 hours. We're about at the end of the video footage that's available because my battery cut out when I was filming this. So I hope you've enjoyed. Like, subscribe, spread the word, and we will see you next time. Everybody, have a good weekend. Tomorrow's Friday. You should look forward to it. In fact, I demand you look forward to it. Wait, Truce, you have both on PlayStation. You should let me borrow those. Get your ass over to my place and we should hang out. I don't care if you have to book a flight. I know who you work for. Don't lie to me. All right, we'll see y'all later. Everybody have a good night.